Happy Wednesday, Unwoke Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 6 of the UnWokeShow, where free speech is welcome, all subjects are on the table, and your boys bring you topics raw and uncut every single Wednesday, baby. I'm your co-host, Rich, along with my brother from another mother, Big Tim. How you doing, Tim?
Good, and you, Rich?
Doing great, man, doing great. Hey, guys, we wanted you to like and subscribe, definitely, as you leave your comments, and check us out on all of our social medias. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. We just recently worked on trying to get on Apple Podcasts, and also we're really excited about that and love to hear from you guys from there. So definitely check us out on there for an Unwoke the Show. And also, guys, remember, we love to hear any comments or questions, or, you know, guys, quite frankly, and also you might have certain topics in mind that you want us to talk about. We'd love to hear what some of your ideas might be. So give us a shout out at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. That's feedback@unwoketheshow.com. All right, guys, we are excited about tonight's show. And talk a little bit about, you know, quite frankly, what we're doing right now. It's all about social media, but we really want to jump into this topic, and we definitely love to hear from you guys about it as well. Just asking the question, is social media made us less social? And I know Tim has been doing some really great research on this, so we'll talk a little bit more about the things going on. So yeah, definitely, Tim, lead us off and on. Let us know what your thoughts are. So what kind of brought us here?
So I think... Is social media making us less social? I think that's really... I think there's two pieces to that. One, I think there is us. And when I say us, human beings.
Right.
We're partly to blame for it. And social media itself... naming off the popular ones like the Twitters, the Twitches, Instagram, TikTok, recently becoming really, really popular. Mm-hmm. I think those two together have collectively made us less social, right? And when we talk about less social, what we're really talking about is the interaction of human beings with each other.
I understand.
Right? That's what we're saying. Are we spending more time on our phones, our iPads, our computers, and engaging in those mediums versus being engaged in human interaction?
Right. So, and I mean, obviously, even when we're out and about, or whether we're out with friends or family, and also, just think about you sitting around at a restaurant, and if you just take a look from left to right, if you see a family of four, where you'll see basically everybody with their heads down, looking at their phones and stuff like that. It just shows the impact that social media has really played on society. That, that's what brings us to this topic, where I wonder, it's like, has it really made us, less social? Does it have mom and dad, does it have parents kind of going, hey, do I really know my kid? Because, I don't spend as much time. You being a dad yourself, what's your thoughts?
Well, iPads, Fire, Amazon Fire devices, right? All those, they replaced what we had growing up as kids, which were crayons and that little to-do sheet anytime you went to a restaurant, right? It had the kids menu on it, but there were puzzles and stuff like that, right? But while we were using those...
You draw inside the lines, Tim?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I struggled. Yeah. But while we were doing that and we were face down, and whether it was hunting for words or, connecting the various numbers that all of a sudden formed a picture and stuff like that, right? We could still ask our parents. But now a family of four sits down, and at least 2, 3, maybe even all 4, outside of looking at the menu and saying, what is everybody going to get to eat? The waitress comes, they order. They may talk for a brief second, but then it's face down.
Right.
So it's the digital babysitter. I don't think it's just for kids. Mm-hmm. I think it's for parents. I would even say our parents, if they've somehow managed to learn in some form or fashion, either through Facebook, another part, really, really popular.
Right.
Just sitting there spending time instead of interacting with your spouse. And so I think what's happened is there's now a psychological aspect to all this.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think that even gets into definitely kids, definitely young adults, definitely parents, grandparents who are spending more time you're in the living room together, but you're not together.
Right.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's like, the example I was just using when it comes to, just restaurants. I mean, I know I've been out with friends, and you kind of look around and kind of go like, wait, it's like you're looking at this person like, wow, you got a table of 5 or 6, and they're all just got their heads down. You can see the screen glowing off of their faces, and kind of like makes you wonder, is like, has any of them talked or asked like, hey, how you doing, or something like that? Like, again, it's just that impact of what social media really is.
Yeah, and I think we have to step back, and it's not just social media, though. I mean, let's just be honest. I think it's the internet. I think is really what kicked it all off, right? Mm-hmm. The internet itself is, really at its heart a communication tool, and that's what its original intent was, right? If we go all the way back to the late 70s, early 80s, and what that was originally intended for, which was to provide another means of communication between our various military branches in the event of a nuclear event, right? If we take out one area, I may be down communication wise in that area, but there's other areas of my military and stuff that I can still communicate with. And I mean, not just in a nuclear, but in a meteorological disaster as well, right? So, I mean, that is what, ultimately the internet was intended to be. And then now all of a sudden, computers became their own host to web pages and was hosting content. And now you're spending hours upon hours on Usenet groups, message boards, just looking at everything from news and interest to porn to, sharing your thoughts, sitting there, waiting for a response, getting something back, email,
right,
as another communication medium. So it's not just social media. It's an unintended consequence of the internet itself. And there was no way for us to know at the time this would be one of the unintended consequences, just like the psychological impacts that the Twitters, the Instagrams, the TikToks, the Twitches of the world, right? All of that, where people are spending more time engaging with their device and less time engaging in human contact. And now all of a sudden their online life has somehow manifested in a way where they feel, and they being this applies to anybody that is consuming most, social media, and is probably more prevalent in teens and young adults. There's no differentiation between my online life and my physical life.
Right.
Right. And so, you were mentioning beforehand, before we got on and started doing the show, talking about, what kind of impact that's had on not only people, but various countries.
Yes, absolutely. We were, just doing, when we were doing our research, just kind of looking, we see it was some of the numbers were just astounding. I mean, just globally by itself, where social media, there's about 4.76 billion with a B social media users globally. And actually, you had mentioned earlier before, which is, I guess, it's not too big of a shock, especially with TikTok, where so the world's largest social media market is China, at 1.44 billion of that. Where now, obviously, TikTok has been everywhere. It's becoming very popular here in the United States, where it's another way people are looking to be able to, on a global scale, it seems, to be able to feel, that importance or anything. But what we've also learned too, and we were doing some statistics with Statistica, this actually dates back to actually in just June, about almost a year ago. And also, and what was really surprising to me is according to when it comes to social media and loneliness, and also actually a Harvard study talked about that, and that study actually went even as far back as like 2018, stating where so that there was a big concern even then about how much social media would play on loneliness or depression and stuff like that. And according to what we found out is that, according to Statistica, and actually going to 2020, amongst Generation Z, what they surveyed were 79% of people within the Generation Z generation felt some type of loneliness, and 71% of millennials felt that had something to do with some type of social media. And that was just really, really surprising. And I know, also, and I have a couple friends that are actually down in this particular country, that would be very shocking, where it's actually Brazil. So it shows that a statistic shows that 48% of Brazilians said that they feel often or always some type of loneliness. Where so, and of course, when I digged a little bit deeper when it came to social media specifically, where so Brazilians between the ages of 25 and 34, about 29% of them said what social media plays a factor into some of their loneliness. So that was actually really surprising. Where so I think 18 to 21 was 18 to 24 was the second most. So I think it's very, very surprising about how much social media has made us, very social, or maybe for some people who might be, I don't know what you would call, like, some people just tend to be like more introverts. It maybe social media has given them a little bit, like you were saying earlier, like a way to be able to be themselves. It's almost like that movie Ready Player One, right? Where it's like, everybody had their own little kind of video game and stuff, but you could create your own avatar and all, and you were a completely different person than maybe what you were in real life. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that gives people who might be a little on the quieter side, or maybe even like some people like yourself. I mean, well, obviously we're a little bit more extrovert. Otherwise, we would be doing a podcast. Right. That, there's certain aspects of social media that kind of gives us that, that opportunity to maybe be something that we've always wanted to be. Would that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think we could probably even look at this from a different angle. I know we're zeroing in on social media, but I think it's more of the technology.
Yes.
And when I say the technology, I'm talking about technology in general. The fire hose that is, examples such as news and interests.
Right.
Right. You can find anything and everything about a given topic that you're interested in.
And the avatar is listening. No matter what platform you're on, they're listening to be able to pick up stuff. I mean, if we're big sports fans, so if I want to see something, about, I don't know, like the Jacksonville Jaguars or something like that, or it'll keep bringing me up old plays, or maybe star players from the past, or, games from last year, and so it just listens to you so it's amazing what it is. So
and it's never off.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Kind of scary, huh?
Yeah. But again, I think that gets back to an unintended consequence that, again, we really didn't think about, or it was thought about, but because the technology didn't exist, we didn't really know the impact. Again, our focus at the time, or at least I want to believe at the time, was all around providing a stable communication infrastructure in the event of a natural disaster or, the nuclear threat. Again, this is at the time of the Cold War and stuff, right?
Right.
And so technology has made it easier for us to not only consume news and interest, social media, but at the volume, right? So you're almost at a point where I'm trying to consume everything that technology is giving me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can't get to that point where I feel that I have consumed enough. So now all of a sudden 1 hour becomes 8 hours, 8 hours becomes 16, and so on, is you're falling more and more down the rabbit hole of consumption, that your personal relationships are starting to suffer. And so I think, getting back to the topic itself, I think it's a two-pronged piece.
Okay.
Part of it is the people, right? Because you can't consume technology without making that decision to say, I'm not going to get on my iPad. I'm not going to get on my laptop. You could even go as far as it's reached smart TVs, right? So I'm not going to turn on my smart TV tonight.
Right.
I'm going to go old school. I'm going to grab a book. I'm going to sit here and read. Or if you got a family, whether it's you and your wife, you and your 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever, tonight is going to be family game night or something, right? We're going to bust out we're going to bust out categories. We're going to get out these games and we're going to play this and interact, and we're going to leave the phones and the tablets someplace else, or we're going to power them off, right? That, very popular, called disconnecting.
You're right. Exactly.
When people say, when you tell somebody you're going to go on vacation, they're like, oh, are you going to disconnect for a while? And you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, right? That unintended consequence, we're looking forward to disconnecting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as if we've had this epiphany that, oh wow, I turned this off. This is great. But then in the reverse, I've turned it on. Oh, I've turned it off. Oh my God, what am I missing? What's happening? And then, if you're at a beach or whatever, and you see somebody over in the cabana next to you and they're on their phone, you're like, hey, could you give me the score of, the Cubs game, for example, right? Can you tell, you're asking about sports, maybe you overhear some news event. You're like, oh, if I would have had my phone, but right. So it's always that one instance away where you feel like, oh, if I would have had it, if I would have had my device, I would have known about it right then and there.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword in that instance.
I mean, I think it is hard. I know my last vacation where we went down to Orlando, Florida, and I know it's like we were down there from pretty much like Monday to almost like Saturday or something. And for me, because I'm so used to having to, with my businesses, and being able to talk with clients and doing all those different things, I mean, quite honestly, it's like, I had to find myself where I was messing with my phone, but it took me almost 3 days to finally relax, to know that, like you said, you didn't have maybe, Sports Center at your fingertips or be able to see the news or anything like that. It took me 3 days to finally go like, oh, I'm truly on vacation and I don't need to really deal with those things, and finally try to relax. And also, and honestly, it truly felt great. It really felt great to just be able to say, okay, you know what? I really don't need this. I'm going to spend time, with the family and do those two. I mean, that was, it was a great thing. And I'll never forget that. And honestly, I think that moment in time is even when we got back to the airport in our town, where it was kind of like, wow, that actually felt really, really good. I mean, for somebody who's constantly, like myself, who's constantly busy and being on social media and trying to do things for business and stuff like that. And then as you said, once you start to really unplug and you truly unplug and go like, wow, that really felt good. I can't explain why, but that was definitely a beneficial experience.
Well, think about COVID, right? And we've talked about COVID and some of the impacts, during the COVID era. And, think about that, what that has done for social media and our form of communication.
Oh, man.
Right now, right?
Right.
Think about those physical interactions have now been cut in half because we're all been quarantined at home and we can't, get out. We're worried about the spread of COVID, and now you've got to provide virtual empathy.
Right. In fact, where for some of you guys who are listening or might not have known or maybe even used it yourself, a lot of the major dating sites, like Bumble and Tinder and stuff, because a lot of people could not interact and actually go on dates. A lot of them were actually encouraging people to use, virtual and stuff like that, or just to basically have a date where you can see that person on your screen.
Yep.
And just doing those different things I mean, imagine how I guess you would say it's like, I mean, you're probably even more comfortable doing it because you're in the comfort of your own home or whatever case may be, but they were going even that far.
I mean, I remember getting on a Zoom call with a bunch of my buddies, and I had a half bottle of bourbon beside me. We're all just chit-chatting, and I'm just pouring, and the next thing I know, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm popped. I look at my bourbon bottle, I'm like, well, that guy's done. And,
right.
We finally got, but it's, in that era, I think the one time where technology made it possible for us to still interact with our friends and family, it never replaced the need for human interaction. And that's the one thing, no matter how successful or evolved technology continues, with the advent, say, of like AI, and right, AI has really been in the news lately.
Right.
You're never going to be able to replace human interaction. You and I right now recording our podcast, that human interaction. Yeah, we probably could have done this, in a meeting and recorded it that way, but being able to sit in the studio and sit here and talk about it, we couldn't do that.
Right.
So, it's times like this that, to me, some of the best times that are out there, because again, it is that human contact. But there is the dark side of technology, where people are sitting in their basements, playing video games, streaming on Twitch, or just playing video games in general, and completely missing out on that aspect, and again drawing the conclusion that their online life is their real life.
Yeah.
So I do think on one aspect it has made us less social, but at the same time that's on us.
Yeah, we have a decision.
Yeah,
right.
It has allowed us to do that, but I definitely think it's impacting kids. I think it's impacting parents. I mean, all you have to do, like the restaurant example you gave earlier, and to all our listeners out there, I mean, just sit in a restaurant, look at the digital babysitters that are sitting around, or look at the husband and the wife, or the guy and the girl that are on a date that are both in their phones.
The
waitress comes by, they order, they talk for a minute, then they're back in their phones. Or
that sounds like a second date is not coming.
Yeah. Or maybe that works, or they're they're on their phone, then they're off for a minute, in their phone, off, I mean, whatever. It's
right.
But, and it's not just in restaurants. You see it in cars.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, when's the last time you sat at a red light and you're like, oh, I'm going to grab a quick text, or...
Not going to lie. Done it.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it too. And then you look up and somebody blows the horn in several cars, and you're like, oh shit, I should pay attention to the road. Yeah, exactly. I mean, right. But it's, and then you've got, the Apples and the Googles of the world who have put in the, you got Apple CarPlay or Google, what is their Google Car? I can't think of what theirs is, but anyway, that have, now you're in, say you've got an Apple phone, you're in Apple CarPlay, right? So now I can hit a button that says, if somebody sends me a text, I'm going to send an automated text back that says, I'll get back to you. I'm out driving right now.
I'm driving, right.
Or it silences it so you can focus on driving, but yet it's, these large, almost laptop sized screens that are now showing up in cars.
Geez, some of these phones are weird. It's like holding on to a football.
Exactly. I mean, but you see, it's making its way into every facet.
I agree.
Of our life. I mean, even look at refrigerators.
Oh yeah. I was visiting a friend, and, it was the first time I saw, it was one of the steel freezer, whatever it was, 2-door refrigerators, and she was explaining to me, and I'm like, oh, what's with the screen like that? She's like, I can actually watch Netflix on my refrigerator. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I mean, you've got your smart TV, right? With all your streaming apps, but then you could load up a Twitter or something like that. Oh, I'm looking at this while I'm cooking, but it's again, it gets back to, it has seeped into every facet of our lives. You know, the smart home, the connected home, right? All of that. Oh, I just pull up an app. I can adjust the lights in one room and turn it. Okay, yeah, you can do that and stuff. So you have more of our, I should say, more and more of our time from a technology perspective, right? The more they keep this hook, the more they're going to make. So it's almost in a sense that technology is vying for our time as much as human interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I actually heard a well-known content creator where he basically said content is currency. Because like you just said, I mean, it's like the more you're putting out there, the more people are going to want to have that involved, and they're more than willing to pay for that in some way, shape, or form. You know, whether it's through attention or monetizing or whatever the case may be. And also, and I was going to mention too earlier, where another thing that's playing. You know, we were talking about, also we say about this being parents, but also with kids.
Yeah,
you know, I mean,
absolutely.
You know, I mean, we hear about this all the time, where because you know, some kid, and I know some parents and like that saying, you know, well, you know, my child doesn't like being on Facebook or TikTok, because some kid, you know, makes fun of them, or because they're, you know, they have, you know, short hair or whatever the case may be, and just imagine how much that plays on. I mean, that stuff, you know, me growing up, somebody says, you know, I don't like your shoes. It's just like, okay, you don't like my shoes. But, you know, for some kids, unfortunately, I mean, they're devastated when they see something like that on social media. So as great as social media has some good positives, and also I'm sure many of the viewers and listeners out there, you know, use things for social media such as like here, using podcasts, getting something educational, or just a good topic, or, you know, just something positive out of it. But we also have those negatives too, where it's like it's just shocking. Where, and especially like I said, man, just hearing how it is with kids, that's rough.
Well, you've got digital bullying, right?
That's it. I knew there was a term for it.
Right, or let's just call it bullying in general.
Right.
The inability for kids to cope today.
Sure.
And that gets back to the comments about the distinction between what is my actual life and what is my digital life, and how kids today feel that they're one and the same. Right. Which is, you know, definitely impacting kids and parents from a psychological standpoint. So sure, I think when it's all said and done, and Unwoke Nation, we'd love to hear from you on this topic, but I would argue say that it's social media. The technology itself, has it made us less social? Yes. But, you know, we, the people that are consuming that, are, I would argue, are probably 80 to 90% more accountable than social media, because we are choosing to go to those tools. So would love to get your thoughts on Woke Nation. Rich, fantastic as always, man. This was a great topic.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Great job today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good. So, hey, guys, definitely, you know, as Tim had mentioned, we'd love to hear from you guys, or definitely reach out to us at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. That's, again, feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Visit us on our social media platforms that we have going out. We'll definitely be putting that out there with each and every one of our episodes as we post it up. So definitely take a look out for that. But, guys, hope you enjoyed the topic, and we will see you on episode 7.